This Game Boy Color has no original Nintendo parts. Everything you see here is brand new aftermarket components. Even the CPU is brand new, being replaced with an FPGA. Now, when it comes to portable FPGA-based handhelds, Analogue with its pocket device reigns supreme, mostly because it's really the only game in town. But that's no longer the case. Funny Playing, the company that's brought us a ton of mods for our Game Boy consoles, has just designed their own Game Boy Color motherboard. And it's pretty awesome. Let's take a look. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today we'll be taking a look at a pretty exciting new product from Funny Playing, and no, it's not just another IPS screen mod like we're used to seeing. Nope, this is an all-new Game Boy Color, designed from the ground up, and it's called the FPGBC, short for Funny Playing Game Boy Color. It utilizes FPGA technology, or Field Programmable Gate Array, which is a special chip that can basically be programmed to mimic other chips, in this case, the Game Boy Color CPU. This is a pretty cool little kit, and I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of these types of products come to market because I really do think FPGA technology is the future of retro gaming. So why do I think FPGA technology is the future? Well, this Game Boy Color here is essentially 25 years old, and as things age, they can begin to fail. And on top of that, these custom integrated chips, like the CPU for the Game Boy Color, are not made anymore and haven't been for decades. That's where FPGA tech comes in. These chips are able to emulate at the hardware level these older, out-of-production custom chips with high accuracy. This is why Analogue products are so great. They provide an extremely accurate gaming experience and also allow us to use our original physical games, something that projects like Mister and software emulation don't really allow. These are in essence brand new, full-on hardware replacement for retro consoles. And at the moment, Analogue is pretty much the only company that makes products like this. Well, that is until now. Funny Playing, a company we all know to make good quality aftermarket screen replacements and other mods for the Game Boy, is getting into the FPGA game too. No pun intended. This is great news because while Analogue products are absolutely incredible and very high quality, they are also expensive and many times hard to get your hands on due to their business model of extremely limited batch releases. On the other hand, Funny Playing seems to be taking another approach, providing an FPGA-based handheld that's both cheaper and easier to get your hands on. So with that, let's see if the FPGBC is a device that is worth your attention. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you what's included in the FPGBC kit. Then I'll demonstrate just how easy it is to put it all together, go over all of its features, review the pros and cons, and of course provide you with my overall thoughts. So first off, the FPGBC is a DIY kit that requires assembly. However, it's super easy with no soldering or cutting involved. The first thing you'll need to get is the kit itself, which comes with the motherboard, a laminated IPS screen, speaker, and a 1800 mAh rechargeable lithium-ion battery. But in order to complete the build, you'll also need to separately purchase buttons, membranes, and a custom shell that is designed for this kit. These shells have been specifically designed to accommodate the laminated IPS screen and has the appropriately sized cutout for the USB-C port on the bottom. Now, of course, this being a totally custom build, I opted to get the custom machined brass buttons, which just look amazing. All these parts were kindly sent to the channel by Retro Game Repair Shop, where you can pick everything that you see here for a 10% discount if you use the links in the video description and the coupon code TITO at checkout. Now, before I show you just how easy it is to put this thing together, let's quickly talk about the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. If you have an idea for a new mod or want to assemble an open source project, PCBWay provides you with the tools to make them a reality. From 3D printing services in an array of materials, all the way to other services like CNC machining, injection molding, and of course PCB and flex ribbon fabrication. So when it comes to taking your retro mods to the next level, PCBWay is the place to make that happen. Check out the link in the description for PCBWay to get $5 off your first order. And again, a huge thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Alright, so like I mentioned previously, this is a really simple build, so kudos to Funny Playing for really making this accessible to a lot of people. Now before we get started, it's always a good idea to test out the kit to make sure everything arrived in working condition. So we're just going to connect the laminated IPS screen to the motherboard as shown, and what I like to do is place a piece of paper or card in between to prevent anything from shorting out. Then we'll just flip it over and then connect the battery. I'll also connect the speaker to make sure that works also. Okay, with everything hooked up, flip it back over and then turn it on, and hopefully everything is working as it should. Fantastic, we have both picture and sound. So now we can go ahead and disassemble everything and then actually start to build the FPGBC. So first thing we're going to do is grab our front shell and then drop in our buttons and membranes. Once that's done, we need to prep the speaker by installing the included silicone gasket, which will help keep it firmly in place and prevent it from rattling around. When installing the speaker, you'll want to place it in at about a 45-degree angle as shown so that it can clear the motherboard. Now, carefully drop in the motherboard. And then secure it with 2 of the included screws on both sides. It's actually recommended to not fasten a screw here in the center as it could potentially cause a crack in the front shell. And besides, once the rear shell is installed, the motherboard will be completely secure. Anyway, go ahead and plug in the speaker and tuck the wire out of the way. Now drop in the IR window and the power switch cover. Next, we can go ahead and install the rear shell and secure it with the 6 tri-point screws. We can now go ahead and connect the battery. It's a bit finicky, but using a plastic spudger can really help. Do not use anything metallic like tweezers to install the connector, as that could lead you to shorting something out. And now all that's left is installing the laminated IPS display. Simply open the bail on the connector and insert the ribbon cable. Once you lock the bail, just quickly check to ensure that the screen works by turning the console on, just to make sure that everything was connected properly. Once everything is confirmed to be working, turn it off and then peel the release paper on the back of the display. Then carefully slide it into place. And there you have it, the FPGBC fully assembled. This is definitely one of the easiest Game Boy builds I've ever done. With no soldering or messy shell trimming, everything just goes together really easily. And easily one of the most standout features that you notice immediately is the large screen at nearly 3 inches or 7 centimeters measured diagonally, which is quite a bit larger than we're used to seeing on a device like this. Except of course when it comes to the Analogue Pocket, which is nearly 8.5 centimeters. But honestly, I'm not going to be comparing this to the Analogue Pocket because, well, they're very different devices with very different price points and features, with the only real similarities being the ability to play Game Boy Color games and the use of a FPGA. So with that, let's take a look at the features that the FPGBC has to offer. So from a form factor standpoint, this is essentially a carbon copy of a Game Boy Color, with the only real distinct external features being the USB-C port on the bottom, the large IPS display, and the toggle switch in place of where the volume dial would normally be. Now toggling the switch up or down will adjust the volume accordingly, but pressing it in will open the on-screen display, or OSD menu, where you can adjust quite a few other settings. So the first thing I want to mention is that I'm currently on version 1.06 of the software, which as of the making of this video is the latest available. I'll leave a link to Makho's GitHub in the video description where you can find all the latest information and firmware downloads for the FPGBC. Anyway, once you're in the OSD, you simply navigate the menu using the D-pad to move up or down, and you press A or B to toggle between the various options for each item. So starting from the top, we have brightness and volume, which is pretty self-explanatory. Simply press A or B to adjust either one up or down. Next, we have display mode, of which there are 3 to choose from. First is X4, which provides a perfect 4x integer scale of the Game Boy's resolution. This is what we see on most Funny Playing aftermarket IPS screen mods. Next is X4P, which is the same 4x integer scaling with the added pixel effect. And last is Full Mode, which takes up the entire screen real estate, although it is not perfectly integer scaled, meaning you will have some slight shimmering under certain circumstances. Honestly, I like the Full Mode and really haven't had any issues with it, and it's what I primarily use. Next is the Core selection. Here you can switch between the original Game Boy Core and the Game Boy Color Core. The only real difference here is when playing original Game Boy games, you may want to use the regular Game Boy Core so that you can take advantage of the different color palettes, which are not accessible using the Game Boy Color Core. The next option is called Frame Mix, which is essentially the frame blending mode. This is used to reduce flickering for in-game objects that are supposed to be transparent. The most notable example of this is Bow Wow's chain in Zelda Link's Awakening. I recommend keeping this feature on, as the flickering can be distracting. Now, this option, called GB Color Fix, is apparently a feature that resolves some issues when playing original Game Boy games in the Game Boy Color Core. For example, here in Pokemon Blue, you'll notice that the character sprites appear to only be half visible, with the other half being completely blacked out. Now, if you turn the Color Fix option on, you'll notice that everything looks fine. So this seems like a strange bug, with the current workaround being to enable this feature. In the future, I'm hoping that they rectify the issue by fixing whatever is causing the underlying problem, instead of having to manually turn a feature like this on. Additionally, some games, like Zelda Link's Awakening, also seem to have an almost inverted color look to them until you enable this feature. Anyway, the last feature is speed, and this will make the Game Boy run either fast or slow. Just for reference, here's the audio for various speed settings. Now, one of the issues with this option is that it's hard to tell what is normal speed, since it doesn't indicate in the menu. It appears that normal speed is just 2 steps below the top, but honestly, I'm just going by feeling here. It would be nice if Funny Playing implemented a better way of indicating the speed being selected, such as designations like 2x for 2 times the speed, or 0.5x when at half speed, or something along those lines. Anyway, all that's left here on the menu is the battery indicator, which is a very convenient feature to have, and a display of what version firmware you're using, which actually brings me to how we update the FPGBC software. It's actually a super simple process, so kudos to Funny Playing on that. All you need to do is plug the console to the computer through its USB-C port, then turn it on. It should then appear as a mass storage device on your computer, and then all you need to do is simply drag and drop the update file into the drive. It's that simple. And as of the latest version, this can be done on either a PC or a Mac. But again, be sure to refer to Macho's GitHub for all the latest information regarding software updates. So with the ability to update the software, and having already seen several firmware iterations be released, I'm really hoping to see continued support from Funny Playing, improving the FPGBC over time. To me, this is really important, and I'll elaborate on this more later on in the video, but Funny Playing really needs to set a precedent of robust product support if they're wanting to convince people to purchase a product like this now and in the future. Alright, so now we've seen what this handheld has to offer, but now let's take a look at the pros and cons. Starting with the pros, firstly, I think Funny Playing really made this a very approachable little project for those that maybe want to get into the modding hobby, or even for those that are experienced modders who just want a simple, fun little project. Funny Playing could have opted to ship these as pre-assembled turnkey handhelds for a slightly higher price. However, it seems they chose this DIY approach mostly as a cost-saving measure to maintain competitive pricing. And speaking of price, if you wanted to modify a real original Game Boy Color to have similar features to the FPGBC, it honestly will probably end up costing quite a bit more than the FPGBC itself, and that's because you'll need an IPS kit, a battery mod, and the Game Boy Color itself, which isn't very cheap to begin with. Now, to get everything you need to make a FPGBC from Retro Game Repair Shop, it's about $120, or if you use my coupon code, it's about $110. Now, you could also buy this directly from Funny Playing in China for about $83. While buying from Funny Playing will save you money, it may take a little bit longer for you to get using their free shipping option, and customer support may be hit or miss. But either way, the FPGBC will be cheaper than building a similarly modded original Game Boy Color, which to me is pretty awesome. Now, the last pro I want to talk about is just how easy it is to update the software on the console. Funny Playing really made the whole process foolproof, which is great because when it comes to software, I'm not the most savvy. So making this as simple as dragging and dropping the update is fantastic. I just hope Funny Playing continues to support and update the FPGBC until it's in a reliable and polished state. Which brings me to the cons. As of right now, the FPGBC works really well, although it's clear there are still some obvious bugs. Things like having to enable color fix mode when there's on-screen glitches, or manually switching between the two cores due to compatibility with certain games. While these are pretty minor issues with the handheld working for the most part, I have to say it feels like we are essentially beta testing the FPGBC for Funny Playing. I think there are still a few updates to go before it is truly a finished product. Also, I've read that this kit has compatibility issues with certain flash carts. I'm using an older EverDrive and didn't run into any issues at all, but devices like the Easy Flash Jr. apparently do not work with the FPGBC. So definitely keep this in mind if you do happen to have one of those flash carts. Now, I do hope Funny Playing can address this in a future update, which allows me to nicely segue into the conclusion of this video. I think this is a very, very exciting product, and while it's still in its early stages, it does show what a budget FPGA device can look like. As of right now, my biggest reservation is the software. If Funny Playing can prove that they will be supporting this device and not just be moving on to the next product, this will no doubt make sure that this and their future products are a home run. But Funny Playing has to show that they are willing to put in the time and support necessary to make this a refined, polished, and fully compatible product. So really, only time will tell, and it's in the best interest of Funny Playing to prove to their customers that they will indeed be supporting this with regular updates. So you're probably asking, should I get the FPGBC? And well, that depends. By and large, this device works perfectly fine. I was able to play every game I threw at it, and my EverDrive didn't have any issues. But it does have a few small bugs and some things to polish, but I do feel confident that Funny Playing will continue to support this, and the fact that it's very easy to update takes away some of the pain of upgrading. Overall, I think this is a very awesome product, and it really makes me excited to see the future of budget-friendly FPGA-based consoles from companies like Funny Playing. The possibilities are truly exciting. Well folks, there you have it. The FPGBC from Funny Playing. A pretty much brand new Game Boy Color that you can build in 2024. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I really think you'll like this one here, so check it out. And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I'll catch you again next time.